What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another one of our game recaps. Today, we're going to be looking over the games from Saturday, December 23rd, Week 16. The Bengals got destroyed by the Steelers, shocking fashion, 34-11. After a crazy week of everyone piling on George Pickens, he absolutely destroyed the Bengals in this one. But Jake Browning, 28-42, 335 yards, a touchdown, 3 interceptions. He also had a carry for 0 yards. The Bengals have the Chiefs next week, so that's going to be a pretty tough matchup. But Jake Browning can add up yards, so if you're at an unbelievably horrible spot at quarterback, and not even unbelievably horrible, really, because Jake Browning can get yards, so not the worst starting option, but definitely not ideal either. Joe Mixon, 11 carries for 43 yards, no rushing touchdown this one, but he had 2 catches for 7 yards. Super disappointing day. It was pretty disappointing all around, except for some pass catchers here. But yeah, the quarterback, 3 interceptions is rough. Running game just couldn't get going. They were behind pretty much this entire game. Chase Brown had 4 carries for 16 yards, also had 2 catches for 8. So he's going to be a really interesting dynasty trade piece, really, coming into this year. Maybe some people are going to think that he's going to take over for Mixon in this coming season. That's what I'm going to expect, but I kind of see it's interesting that they're playing the Steelers because I kind of see Mixon and Brown similar to Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris. I still think Mixon is going to get volume next year, but Chase Brown definitely won't be ignored either. T. Higgins, he caught a bunch of passes at the end, 5 catches, 140 yards, and a touchdown. Great stuff here on 8 targets. He's going to get the L'Jarius Sneed shadow. Excuse me, if you play him next week, that's what they got going against him. So it's a tough matchup, not the most ideal situation either, but he is the number 1 guy here. I will say, though, for the majority of this game, it looked like a Tyler Boyd game. 5 catches, 59 yards on 7 targets. He is not going to be ignored either. The Chiefs, they could be pulling away from the Bengals too, especially if the Steelers are beating the crap out of him. The Chiefs should have no problem with him. So it's possible that they throw a whole bunch and T. Higgins gets some love, Tyler Boyd gets some love. That's definitely a possibility, but it's not like these guys are going to be ranked in my top 15 or anything. Drew Sample got most of the tight end work here, 3 catches for 38 yards. Trenton Irwin, he had 4 catches for 37. Andre Iosivas. I listened very closely to the broadcast yesterday. Andre Iosivas. That's how you say it. Andre Iosivas. He had 4 catches for 36 yards on 8 targets. I had trouble with that even when he was at Princeton in draft prep. It's just one of those names for me. Chase Brown, 2 catches for 8 yards. Joe Mixon, very similar, 2 catches for 7. Double the targets, though, for Brown. Or double the targets Mixon had over Brown. Mitchell Wilcox, just a catch for 6 yards. Tanner Hudson, surprisingly not getting as much tight end work here, just the 1 catch for 5 yards. And Charlie Jones, the rookie from Purdue, had a catch for -1. Mason Rudolph, he had a really interesting game here. He also looked better than any other quarterback they've had playing up to this point. So it's possible that Mason Rudolph just becomes a starter the rest of the way. They seem pretty set on Kenny Pickett coming into the season, though. So it's probably going to be Pickett's job. But Mason Rudolph starting the rest of the way can't be counted out either, especially if Pickett starts to struggle. 17-27, 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 2 carries for 4 yards. Really good stuff here. The Steelers have the Seahawks next week, so it's a decent matchup. So if you're deciding between Rudolph and Jake Browning, that's going to be more in the ballpark there. But Rudolph has the better matchup, so that's where I'm leaning right now. But I still got to crunch the numbers before I give like a real solid answer on that. Najee Harris, 19 carries for 78 yards and a rushing touchdown. No receiving work for him in this one, which is interesting, but still getting all the rushing carries. They're getting all the carries, getting all the rushing work. Awesome stuff here. When they were up, they just kept pounding it with Najee. It's going to be an interesting play because the Seahawks are really soft against running back. So this is going to be a great matchup for Warren and Harris. So those two are definitely in the discussion for playing next week. Warren had 8 carries for 24 yards. He also had 5 catches for 30 yards. That receiving game. So Warren gets all the receiving game work, and Najee usually misses out on that. So that's where Warren can really get some points for us next week in the championship. Calvin Austin, he had a carry for 7 yards. Also did not haul in either of his 2 targets. George Pickens, though, he was incredible. 4 catches, 195 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. He also had 6 targets. He is going to be, or I'll say it this way, his projection going into next year is going to be a total mess because he's going to be crazy up and down next year just like he was this year. But we see a game like this at the end of the year, something like this is going to stick in people's minds. He's going to get overdrafted again. I would suggest people to stay away from him because he's going to have these crazy up and down streaks. That's just his nature, it seems, where he's not going to be very consistent day in and day out. I would avoid George Pickens next year, but this is still like, this shows you the potential that lives within George Pickens, but he just hasn't been able to live up to that. Really, like, even at Georgia, he had a bunch of hype. Lots of people saying that he was going to be the next AJ Green, and that just never materialized. So keep that in mind with George Pickens. It's going to be a crazy offseason for his pre-draft ranking. Allen Robinson, he had 4 catches for 36 yards. Diontae Johnson, super disappointing here, 2 catches for 15 yards. Darnell Washington had a catch for 8. Miles Boykins had a catch for 6. So, they're facing the Seahawks next week. It's a pretty easy matchup, but the uncertainty at quarterback, I would avoid Steelers receivers if I can. If I had to choose between Pickens or Johnson, they're going to be very, very close in the next rankings. I'm still not ready to say that I completely trust George Pickens because, 6 targets, that's the lead, but, the targets are pretty spread around here. It's not like Mason Rudolph was fixating on George Pickens. Pickens just used his ability and took a bunch of plays to the house. So I still got to think that one over. I'm leaning towards saying Diontae Johnson still because of the track record up to this point. Pickens has been so bad except for this game. So Johnson's still probably going to be above Pickens, but it's not going to be far off either. So keep that in mind as we look at Steelers. Last game of the night, the Bills beat the Chargers 24-22. Josh Allen was 15-21, 237 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He also had 5 carries for 15 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. This rushing work is why he has a higher floor. This is why he's going to be ranked in the top 5, or he has been ranked in the top 5 every single week. The Bills have the Patriots next week, so very good matchup for Josh Allen. Definitely lock him into your lineups. Don't do anything crazy with that. James Cook, a little disappointing here. 20 carries, 70 yards, no receiving game work. I would still play him next week. This is absolutely a disappointment coming off of crazy 30-point weeks, but got to hang in there with him. It's going to be a little up and down, as it has all year really with James Cook. Very good back. He's probably going to be ranked in my top 15, if not top 20. So definitely keep James Cook locked in. Leonard Fournette getting all the carries. No Ty Johnson. No Latavius Murray getting rushing work in this one. So all the rushing work, Leonard Fournette's. 5 carries, 20 yards. Johnson and Murray, or I know Murray was active. Johnson, I'm not so sure off the top of my head. But Leonard Fournette getting these carries, it's not going to affect James Cook at all. I think James Cook is still going to be the lead dog very clearly. But Fournette is going to be that secondary back, it seems, for the foreseeable future. Gabe Davis, this is why people play Gabe Davis, because these sorts of games, 4 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown on 6 targets, it's like George Pickens. He'll either get you 0 points or just explode like this. So it just depends on how lucky you're feeling if you want to play Gabe Davis. They have the Patriots next week, which is a pretty good matchup, but at the same time, he could get you 0 points. There's no predicting Gabe Davis. He's a complete anomaly in fantasy. Khalil Shakir, 3 catches, 45 yards. We do not want to play him. Stefon Diggs, it has been so rough here. 5 catches, 29 yards. Still leading the team in targets, but it hasn't been easy. If you still have, if you have Stefon Diggs on your team, you must have a pretty loaded roster around him to get into the championship. The Patriots are a really good matchup for him, so he should get back into form against the Patriots, but he was supposed to get back into form against a really good matchup here too, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens there with Diggs, but I would still keep him in your lineup because he's the one who got you into the playoffs in the first place, even though he has been sucking since the playoffs started. Dawson Knox, 2 catches, 26 yards. Dalton Kincaid just had the 1 catch for 7. Ever since Dawson Knox came back, Dalton Kincaid's production has fallen off a cliff. So I would not be playing either of them as they play the Patriots next week. Easton Stick, really interesting game here. 23 of 33, 215 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 7 carries for 25 yards and a rushing touchdown. He can do a little bit of rushing work. He didn't really show that in the last game because they got blown out, but in this game they had some design runs for him. A really interesting option. They have the Broncos next week, so it's a pretty tough defense, but you could absolutely do worse than Easton Stick as your starting option. But you'd have to be in a pretty bad spot at quarterback, but still, you could do definitely way worse than Easton Stick. Austin Ekeler, 15 carries for 65 yards in this one. 3 catches for 21 yards. It's been pretty rough here lately, but similar to Stefon Diggs, you drafted him high, you built your team around him. You got to just hang in there with Austin Ekeler. Darius Davis, the returner, he had a carry for 8 yards and a catch for 6. Quentin Johnston had a carry for 1 yard and 2 catches for 29. Isaiah Spiller, the backup running back, had 2 carries for 1 yard and 1 catch for 4. And Joshua Kelley just had the 1 catch for -2. So it looks like Isaiah Spiller is kind of asserting himself as a primary backup option here, opposite of Joshua Kelley. Gerald Everett, 7 catches, 42 yards, and 8 targets. Absolutely a good tight end option to stream next week. Joshua Palmer, 5 catches, 47 yards, and 8 targets. He's going to have Patrick Surtain on him, so he's not going to be as locked in of a starter. I like Gerald Everett's fantasy prospects better, but Joshua Palmer is a decent option because he is the clear number 1 receiver in this offense. Alex Erickson, 2 catches for 31 yards on 2 targets. Stone Smart had a catch for 23. Jalen Guyton had a catch for 12. Darius Davis, he had that catch for 6, and Isaiah Spiller had the catch for 4. So that's going to do it for me, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Only 2 more weeks of this, so it's crazy. The season has just flown by. Like, comment, subscribe, follow at We Are Drafting on Instagram. We'll have all the championship week rankings ready to go. Championship ads, championship drops as soon as Monday Night Football is over. So check those out. I will see you over there, and thank you so much for watching.